Alrighty, folks. Hey, it's Hunting the Rut Hotline, folks. My name is Don Bell. It is Thursday night. Today is going to be the 11th. And, folks, it's amazing how fast time flies. Big Steve-O here. Big Dog is out tonight. Listen, it's that time of year, folks. We are busy doing shows. We have a lot of trade shows that we do. And so sometimes that's the reason you'll see me gone, and sometimes you see when Steve's gone. But rarely will we both be gone. But, hey, listen, it's Thursday night. It's 7 o'clock. You got some questions. We're going to have some answers. Hey, get on the phone, call all your friends, invite them to call in tonight and to be able to Facebook in, Skype in, email in, and folks, we'll take your questions. We'll be right back in just one moment.
You've worked hard all summer to get everything just right. Don't leave the rest of it to chance. Use the finest deer urine ever collected and the only one in the market that is oxygen-free. From collection to bottle. Get ready. It's time to hunt.
Repel and kill the bugs that bug you most with the all-natural 100% deep-free BioShield.
You've waited your whole life for this moment. Don't spoil your opportunity because of poor preparation. Keep your optics clean and fog-free for a clear shot every time. Fog Zero.
Alrighty, folks, we're back. Hey, listen, we're live. It's Thursday night. And, folks, listen, did you see that little commercial right there? That is a neat little gadget. I was just telling the guys in behind the curtain here that little Fog Zero thing, that is a neat little gadget. Folks, $12.95. It will stop your optics from fogging. There's nothing worse, and everybody that's ever hunted has had that happen. That little gadget will stop it from happening. Hey, you can get it at your local sporting goods store or your favorite retailer, or certainly you can go online and get it directly with us. Hey, folks, listen, tonight what we want to do is kind of remind you of a couple things. It is hard to believe that it is already mid-year. I mean, June the 11th here, we're halfway through the year. What that means is, and we've told you as we do these shows each week, Hunting the Rut Hotline. Well, we do an unbelievable amount of Hunting the Rut shows, seminars that are free, that are all around the country. And we started kind of doing this last week a little bit. And you'll see this posted, and I'm just going to kind of give you some that's coming up, and then starting next week you'll be able to have graphics, and each week now going forward we will show you where we're going to be in the coming weeks in the different parts of the country. And you would think that it's just like a rabbit jumping around. We're literally all over the country. First of all, everybody that's out there in Pennsylvania, Denver, Pennsylvania, not Denver, Colorado, but Denver, PA. We're going to be there at Weaver's store, and that's going to be July the 24th. That actually kicks off our season in doing seminars around the country. After the 4th of July, everybody's attention turns toward fall as far as hunters and retailers and individuals. So, guys, seminar starts. The first one will be in Denver, PA, and it'll be on a Friday night at 7 p.m. at Weaver Store. Then going forward, it jumps to August, and when we get into August, it is wide open. Those of you that live in Hughesville, Maryland, we're going to be at J&J Outdoors, and that's going to be at Saturday. That'll be at 11 o'clock. You'll hear more about that. That's J&J Outdoors in Hughesville, Maryland. You come right around the next Saturday, we're going to be at Medford Outdoors, and that's in North Tazewell, Virginia. Now, all of those of you up there in North Tazewell, Virginia, you know that we've done a couple seminars there for you before, and we're coming back. So tell all your friends about it. The crowd keeps getting bigger and bigger there. That's the reason why they keep doing these seminars. Guys, these are good how-to seminars. In this show that we do each Thursday night, we kind of take your question on what you're thinking, like for instance tonight. When you call in, we're answering the question that you have, even though it's June. Well, once we get to these seminars, what we do is we start hunting the rut. Let's take North Tazewell, Virginia, August the 8th. What we're going to talk about there is what deer are doing in North Tazewell, Virginia as of August the 8th. And then we're going to take them through pre, peak, post-rut, how to hunt the 3 periods of the rut, where they live there in and around Tazewell, Virginia. Now, North Tazewell, Virginia. The following week, on the 13th, we're going to be in Monticello, Georgia. And we will be at Larry's Four-Way. The next night, we're going to be in Sand Mountain Pond in Boaz, Alabama. The following night, on the 15th, we're going to be in Bow Enterprises at 3 p.m. and that's called Jesse James Outpost. You can't miss that. Jesse James Outpost, and that's going to be at 11 a.m. If it's on Thursday or Friday night at 7 p.m., being on a Saturday, note, at Jesse James Outpost, that's going to be at 11 a.m. And folks, notice something. We're literally, just in those 4 or 5 dates, we're in Maryland, Virginia, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. The following week, we're going to be in Little Egg Harbor, New Jersey. That's right, folks. There's a place that's called Little Egg Harbor, New Jersey, and we're going to be at Shooter's Sporting Center, and that will be at 7 p.m. We'll talk about what deer are doing that night, right then, and the difference of what they're doing in Little Egg Harbor, New Jersey versus what they were doing 3 weeks earlier in Maryland, or the following week in Virginia, or the following week in Monticello, Georgia. Deer are doing things each week. Just as you're kind of getting ready and you're moving along through life, and we go through spring and we get ready for get rid of the snow, and we think about spring, we start fishing, we think about summer, fishing and 4th of July. Well, deer go through the same process, and you need to be aware of that, and that's what these seminars are geared up to do. A seminar is a very detailed extension of this show, except it's very chronological. I akin it to, in fact, the whole reason I started doing these seminars growing up in the South Alabama and the Black Belt, and also in the Bible Belt, we'd be in Sunday school one Sunday morning, we'd be in Old Testament. Next Sunday morning, we'd be in New Testament. We'd be old, new, old, new. And I used to think, gee, if you would stay in one of these books and teach me the story chronologically, I could remember the story. And I've never forgotten that, and that's the reason we do what we do, is that we tell the story chronologically, what deer are doing from the time we get there for the seminar night all the way through the end of your season, whichever town and city and state that you live in. So August the 20th, we're going to be in Shooter Sporting Center, Little Egg Harbor, New Jersey. The night after, 2 nights after that, we're going to be in Crossroads General Store in Walker, West Virginia. And folks, notice that's on a Saturday, and that'll be at 11 a.m. Just quickly, we'll get a couple more here in the month of August. We will be on Thursday, the 27th. And those of you that are up or in around northern New York, you want to come to this. This is Hilltop Hunting and Fishing Shop, and that's in Canton, New York. Now let me tell you where Canton, New York is. Canton, New York, because I've done several of these for Joe up there. It's a great little archery shop. In fact, I've done them for a number of years for Joe, and when Joe first started, and that shop has really grown. It's 8 miles from the Canadian line. So I used to, we'll leave from South Alabama and go all the way to the Canadian line to do a seminar to let you know how to hunt the bucks in Canton, New York, up on that Canadian line during pre-peak and post-rut. That is August the 27th, and that will be at 7 p.m. The last one, as we are today, that's booked, and I say that because as soon as we get through with this, I leave going to another show. The schedule, there may be additional ones added. But the last one that we have for the month of August is South Delta Parts, and that is in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. So folks, when you leave Thursday night in Canton, Canton, New York, 8 miles from the Canadian line, and then you come all the way down to the Delta, Mississippi to Rolling Fork and do a seminar and talk about what deer are doing, and it's a day and a half difference. There are nuances in that. They all have the same ears, eyes, nose, pre-peak, post, secondary, primary scrapes, all that. But there are nuances in the regions that you hunt and what deer are doing as they start out, and you need to know those, and that's what we'll be talking about, what deer are doing in these seminars. Man, if you can make it, you need to. It is a great time. You'll be able to ask questions, and we will chronologically go through talking about the deer in your town, in your county, in your state during that month. So folks, make plans. You'll see this start next week. It'll be graphic up there. And of course, anytime you can log on. And I am, at that time, that is right, they'll be able to log on to see these dates. You can check with us. Certainly, you can call the 800 number and check with us if we're going to have someone in your area. And certainly, if you got a dealer and we're not near you and you want your local dealer to do one of these, we do not charge. The seminar is free to attend. We do not charge the dealer to come. If you want your dealer to host one of these seminars for you, Hunting the Rut Hotline with Don Bell, just simply call us and we'll be glad to schedule and see if we can't work out a time to come do a seminar for them and for you. Hey folks, listen, stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to try to answer some questions here. Be right back.
Rise and shine. It's time to hunt.
Repel and kill the bugs that bug you most with the all-natural 100% deep-free BioShield.
You've waited your whole life for this moment. Don't spoil your opportunity because of poor preparation. Keep your optics clean and fog-free for a clear shot every time. Fog Zero.
All righty, folks, we're back, and looky here, what we're going to do tonight. We're going to try to, we appreciate the emails, we appreciate the Facebook questions, and certainly we appreciate you calling in and encourage you to do it as often as you can and would like to. Listen, your question, not everybody feels comfortable calling in, though there's a lot that calls in. When you call in, you're asking a question. Somebody may be shy to call in and ask a question, but I assure you there's viewers out there that participate, that hears that, and they get educated by your question because they're seeing it and applying it where they live. So first of all, let's start off and see if we can knock out or kind of semi-catch up with some Facebooks here. Appreciate you coming in. We will get to them. We will get to them. So we'll try to catch up some tonight. First question is from Blake Sanchez from Davenport, Iowa. Is there any truth to the October lull, and what is it? There is things that's known as a lull. Where you're at, Blake, you're calling it the October lull. In Alabama, we call it the December lull. And what is it? I'd love to be able to tell you exactly what that is. I don't know really and truly, Blake, 100% what it is, but it flat occurs. It could be certainly there's a combination of several things, but what's crazy, we can understand that in Alabama with the December lull because we've already had October. Bow season comes in the 15th, first part of gun season, it comes in the 21st of November. So, we're already 4 weeks into gun season, actually 2 weeks into gun season. And in December, it's like they hide. I mean, you see tracks everywhere. Just eat up, no deer. You'd think they went to the moon somewhere. They have just absolutely disappeared. Then all of a sudden they appear again. So I can kind of understand it in Alabama, but in the Southeast where seasons comes in early. But you're talking, Blake, you're up there in October, man. You're up there just shortly after season opens, and certainly see in October you're just 6 weeks from the peak of the rut. So I'm not 100% sure on that. And I tell you something, Blake, if you find out what you think it is, or somebody else, or guys listening in tonight, if you know what that is, or you got an opinion on why you think that is, give us a buzz. We've done research, we've heard the research, we've read the research, and when you get your feet on the ground it doesn't always jive with all the research, and sometimes it just doesn't shake out that way. And so let us hear from you. Let us know if you're having the same or an answer to the October lull in and around Iowa, for that matter, anywhere in the Midwest. But it flat is real. It's not a figment of your imagination. It does happen, and it varies from time to time. In Alabama, heck, it's almost the full month of December. It's like they just punch out and go home somewhere. So Blake, let us hear back from you, okay? Next question that we have, Facebook, is from Brittany and Alden and Hermantown, Minnesota. If you had to choose between hunting early season versus the rut, which would you prefer and why? And of course, automatically the guys in the control room, they know what I'm fixing to do. I'm fixing to clarify what Brittany is saying. Brittany, it's a very, very common mistake. And, you know, we were talking earlier, and it's true, you normally get an answer to the question that you ask. And I think, Brittany, what you're asking, and I'm almost 100% sure what you're asking me, is if you had to choose between early season and the peak of the rut, the difference between hunting pre-rut and the peak of the rut, which would you prefer and why? Now, having clarified that, whether I'd rather hunt pre-rut or peak of the rut, clarification and why. Now, if Steve was sitting here, Steve's answer to that would be he'd rather hunt pre-rut, because pre-rut, a white-tailed has ears, eyes, nose. That rascal's had 6-8 months of basically everything calm. A white-tailed deer is a very, very elusive animal. In fact, we just had a sales meeting for an hour, and we were educating our sales force, and you know, to get them understand the defenses of a white-tailed deer. One of the most, if not the, probably is the most elusive predator. Whitetail is the most elusive animal game in North America to hunt. Now, having said that, there is a difference between pre-rut and the peak of the rut. And one of the reasons Steve loves to hunt pre-rut, early bow season, opening of bow season, is because those guys have already had 6-8 months of no pressure. They've calmed down. They've got in a routine. A white-tailed deer is being as elusive they are. They're also phenomenally habitual. And what I mean by that is they're going to do the same thing day in and day out. There's always security and routine because it's a known. And if something comes up outside of that known, you recognize it and you adjust to it. So pre-rut, a buck is he's to and from, and he's used to it. He's used to what he's seeing, he's used to what he's hearing. Therefore, your best shot to kill a big buck, not your best shot, but a real good shot to kill one, if you know the property and if you can control the property, would be pre-rut. One of the reasons Steve loves to do it opening week of bow season. He'd just about rather hunt the opening week than he had the peak of the rut. But now, having said that, Brittany, peak of the rut, that's a whole different mindset. Now you've got bucks that are outside of that routine, and they're thinking doe. They're chasing a doe. That's all. And they're not here, they're this way. Instead of going to and from, whichever way they're going, back and forth, day in and day out, traveling with no problem, no pressure. All of a sudden, deer are everywhere, and bucks are chasing does, and you got hunters in the woods, and it's just bang, bang, go, go, go. And all that, they're trying to get to a doe. So they both have their advantages, but you can kill some big bucks early season if you pattern them, know what they're doing. And as we've said many times on this show, if you look for antlers after season, and when those bucks start dropping those antlers, and you know your property, you'll see which bucks made it and which ones didn't, and therefore you already know, have somewhat of an inventory on your property as a general rule. That's not always the case, because he could be off on somebody else's piece of property. But at least as a general rule, you've got an inventory account to where you can start preparing and looking for a given buck rather than just any buck that comes along. There is a preference to it. Me personally, I like the peak of the rut. Actually, I like just before the peak of the rut. And the reason for that is the peak of the rut, and the guys in the control room can answer this, is you got pre-peak, post. Peak being when the majority of the does are standing. The word estrus means an animal will stand and not run. Therefore, the peak makes sense. That's when the majority of the does are standing and not running. The peak of the rut, they're standing. Just before the peak of the rut, a buck's going to make a primary scrape, a master bedroom, and he's going to be checking it. The best time to rattle and the best time to grunt is just, you can grunt all year, but the best time to rattle is here, just before the peak of the rut, not during it. It's not that it's not effective during it, it's just less effective because when you're rattling, you're saying you're fighting, and what you're doing is you're telling me, hey, man, you want to fight? Well, no, I don't want to fight. There's 50 does standing around. You want that one? Okay, hey, have that one. I'll take East 10. There's does everywhere during the peak. So there's less competition for them. They're everywhere. Just before the peak, there's less does in as it starts to ramp. And so when you grunt or you rattle, the intensity is to fight over those few, so it becomes way more aggressive. Therefore, the grunting and the rattling is more effective for you. You're going to see way better results, certainly more aggressive results here than you will here because there's plenty standing around. Now, you think about that, if this is a peak, then right after the peak, as it goes up and comes down, those does that didn't get bred, there's going to be another good time to grunt and rattle. Grunt all season, but rattling is best time is just before and right after the peak of the rut. Less in, most in, less in as the peak of the rut starts to go down. So long answer for a relatively short question, Brittany, but that's the way it rolls. You need to understand the difference between pre-peak and post to really be effective. And it really doesn't matter what part of the country you're in. Mine's process is the same. A white-tailed deer is a white-tailed deer if he lives in South Alabama or if he lives in Manitoba, Canada. Makes no difference if he's in wide open in Kansas or if he's in the density state of New Jersey. The difference is ears, eyes, nose. The only other difference is topography, pressure, how you set up on those deer. So in understanding that pressure and topography, nothing replaces woodsmanship. You can go on a new piece of property and kill a deer. But it's nothing like going on an existing piece of property, know it, and if a deer does this, you know which way that deer is going to be going because he needs to go to safety or he needs to get around this to get over there. That's woodsmanship, and that's understanding like a predator. So I hope that helps, Brittany. If not, call us, let us know. We'll be glad to back up and kind of get more in detail for you. Let's see here. We have Ashley Bowes from Emporia, Kansas, talking about Kansas, which is an absolutely gorgeous state. If you ever get the chance to hunt Kansas, you want to do it, whether you're turkey hunting or whether you're whitetail hunting. They're big in both examples. Does every buck, and this is a great question, does every buck have a specific smell to him that helps him stand out amongst the herd? Every deer has their own smell. And what I mean by that is, it's just like humans. You know, I live in South Alabama. If you take Alabama, this is the panhandle of Florida. Atmore is right on the Alabama-Florida line. And well, if you Google Atmore, Alabama, you're going to find out some unusual things about it. First of all, we have two prisons just north of Atmore, and one is a state prison. Well, both of them are state prisons, but one is an old prison and one is the maximum security. It has what is called the Yellow Mama, which is the electric chair for the state of Alabama. And so when you do this and if somebody were to escape, we have bloodhounds there. and they literally send them bloodhounds, just like the old Southern movies you see, you know, where somebody's escaped and they get the bloodhound and they follow them. Well, we got the bloodhounds, and they'll put them on loan anywhere in the country. It's crazy. Now, I'm telling you to say that is that a human puts off a certain identity smell, meaning that if I were to take my shirt off, or Tom were to take his shirt off, and I took his shirt and I gave it to a bloodhound, I say, hey, Tom, go hide. And you go across Pensacola and you're walking and you go get in the crowd in the mall, it doesn't make any difference. I take that bloodhound, I say, here, I give it to the dog, he's going to find Tom. Because Tom has a certain smell, and he's going to go to that smell. He can distinguish Tom from Don. That's how he can go through a crowd. Now, a whitetail nose is just as gifted, in a lot of ways better. So the difference between a whitetail's nose and a hound, though they're both phenomenally sensitive, each deer is like a human. If I were to take Tom's shirt off and were to wipe Tom's shirt down on everybody in the company here today, go out in the warehouse and wipe everybody down and say, Tom, go hide, and I take that same bloodhound with that same shirt and say, go find Tom, he can't. Now, why would that be? It's because what I've done is I've screwed that that dog's nose up. I have put Tom's with mine, with Chris's, with everybody else's scent. He can't distinguish it. But if you have a single smell, that dog can do it. Now let's talk about the difference between a deer. When a fawn is born, and it's hard to imagine this, how can it be, but a fawn is odorless. That's the reason why you see them lay down and a predator will go around them. But as an animal grows, an animal's going to have its own scent. Where we get scent with the rut, where it really comes into play here, is that each buck will do what is called rub urination. Now, rub urination is a fascinating thing, and we think as hunters, more times than not, we only think about the buck. But actually, does do it too. Let's start with the buck. A buck only, as a general rule, only rub urinates during the rut, pre, peak, and post rut. Now, the older he is, the more mass he has, the bigger in size, the more he will urinate over his back tarsal glands. The tarsal gland is the back ankle, your knee area. I said ankle, back knee area, just like your knee. It has a tuft of hair that comes out that secretes a musk. That is one odor. Each one of those odors are there with some nuances. But when he urinates over that tarsal and the urine mixes with the musk and it ammoniates, then you start having a deeper rutting smell. And it's unique to that buck. The bigger the buck, normally the bigger the darker the gland and the stronger the gland. So you can see the differences in the ages of the deer and also the smell of it. Though that same dominant buck may have a certain smell before pre, and as the peak of the rut starts to go along from pre to peak to post, it's going to start having a stronger smell to it as he urinates, and especially as he marks scrapes. A buck primarily urinates only during the fall, all right, during the rut, pre-peak and post, not just during the peak, but pre-peak and post. First thing he does is comes along and makes secondary scrapes. A doe will urinate 365 days a year. Research shows that a doe, a mature doe, when she gets up out of her bed, let's say where I'm sitting here I'm a doe and I get up, a doe will urinate just like a buck, but doing it for a whole different reason. And what she's doing is, and she's putting on her identity, and I use this analogy, and everybody from the South will understand this. You won't hardly find a Southern lady that will get up on a Saturday morning and just go off to Walmart. They're going to get up, they're going to get dressed, they're going to put their makeup on, they're going to put their identity on, and they're going to go to Walmart. Well, that's sort of like a doe. A doe gets up. When she gets up out of her bed, research shows within the first 30 minutes of the time that doe gets up, she'll browse in that bedding area, and then she'll walk off. So before she walks off, she's going to rub urinate. She's putting her identity on, her status. Research also shows that if she goes off and if she comes in contact with another mature doe or older than her, she will rub urinate in the presence of that other doe to show status. And so does do it 365 days a year, not for the exact same reason a buck does, but it does show status. They're just not fighting over that status. But man, you're talking about rough, is you can get hurt with a doe. When a doe runs a young buck off, and when she says it's time to go, all of you have seen it in video, she'll rear up on her back legs like a kangaroo, and that old girl, she'll beat you to death so fast like a boxer, getting rid of that young buck, getting him out of there. So the answer to your question, Ashley, is yes, they do smell different, and that difference increases as the pre-peak and post-rut goes along, and the degree that it changes is the degree in the age and the maturity and the dominance of that buck, whereas a doe rub urinates 365 days a year, primarily for status purposes. All right, folks, listen, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to climb over this, do it all over again. Be right back.
From Don Bell, the founder of Code Blue, comes Top Secret Reserve Doe Estrus, the finest doe estrus ever collected. Top Secret oxygen-free collection process is a complete generation above Code Blue. Our patent-pending collection process means no ammonia and no ammonia smell. At a limited quantity of 12,000 bottles, only 1/10% of hunters will be lucky enough to add Top Secret to their arsenal. Visit TopSecretDeerScent.com today and join the 1/10% club.
All right, folks, we're back, and listen, notice up in the top left-hand side of the screen right there, it says the 1/10% Club. Folks, we've been telling you, open enrollment, it's on the tail end of this thing, and listen, don't get left behind. What you see behind me here is the 1/10% Club membership, and what it is you can get estrus or you can get buck. It is reserve. Folks, listen, the only way that you hear us say this week in and week out, the only way you can be a club member is to be able to get a bottle. This bottle is not inexpensive. It's a $100 bill. Folks, there's a lot of crazy ways to spend $100. This is not one of them. This is a good way to spend it. And you tonight can be a club member, and the way you do it is by ordering a bottle, and you can do either estrus or buck, and you can either order it tonight. You can go right now, hit the button below, buy now. It'll take you to the club page that you see up on the screen there, and you can buy one or two ways. You can say, you know, I want that bad boy, and I want to pay for it tonight. Well, you hit option one, you can pay for it, and then you pick a date. Even though you're buying it tonight, you can say, you know, Don, I don't want this. I'm going to Kansas, or I don't want it till season opens in October, or I don't want it till November, the 1st of November. Well, that's when we'll ship it to you. Even though you're a club member now, you get to participate in all the stuff that entails. We're not going to ship it to you till you say you want it. Now then, the second option, in which is, you know, we'd love to have your money right now, but folks, look, you can actually take the second option, which is a real popular option right now in June, is that you can order it tonight and pay for it over 4 payments. So you can pay for it in June, July, August, September, and we'll ship it to you whenever you want it this fall. So folks, there's no excuses unless we run out of product. It's on a first come, first served basis. You can be a club member by buying estrus or buck. There's 12,000 bottles for 12 million deer hunters. Do the math. 1/10% Club. And just as a lasting note here, there's not but about 1,100-1,200 bottles each year of buck, and that's because obviously you don't need as many bucks to service as many does. So the buck is actually harder to get than the estrus, meaning that we'll run out of it first before we do this. And you certainly can be a club member by buying either bottle, or you can buy both. All you do is place the order, tell us when you want it. Hey, be a club member. Alrighty, let's see, guys. We're going back to try to catch up again. All righty, let's see here. We have Turner Douglas from Tyler, Texas. Do does use scrapes more than bucks? If so, why? Well, now, do you guys know where Tyler, Texas is? No? Tyler, Texas. I want to say it's something. Isn't it quite near the Panhandle part of Texas? I think it is. But the reason I say that is that it's coming from Texas asking about scrapes. You're going to have it in the piney woods. You're going to have it everywhere. But when you get into hill country and you get into the southern part of the state of Texas, you know, it's so flat and stuff, and those mesquite, it's not as prevalent as you see it. It's there. It's just not as obvious. But here's the question. Do does use scrapes more than bucks? If so, why? Bucks and does use scrapes. Here's the purpose of it. Now, you guys that watch this show, you know I'm bad on analogies, and I use them for a reason. I really do. I'm not just trying to think of something to say. I'm trying to show an analogy that it makes sense to you, that you can remember. Yep, just east of Tyler's, east of Texas, Dallas, east of Texas, east of Dallas. So, which would be the pine country. Piney woods. And that's the reason I said that, because it's odd you're thinking scrape, but being he's in the piney woods, it makes perfect sense. All right, so here's the question. Both bucks and does use scrapes for different reasons. A buck marks a scrape as be it a secondary scrape or a primary scrape. A secondary scrape, a buck makes a scrape and he's going along and he's just frustrated. He's out of velvet. He can breed. They no does in, and he's just frustrated as all get out. So what I call a frustration scrape, the University of Georgia calls a secondary scrape, which is pre-rut, early bow season. That's the reason a lot of people get set up on top of scrapes, get frustrated hunting, because they don't see the buck. Well, as a general rule, the reason they're not seeing the buck is because, as a general rule, the buck doesn't mark the scrapes. It's a frustration scrape. He's hitting it and leaving it. He's hitting it and leaving it. He may have 5, 10, 15 of these things around his perimeter, and as a general rule, he's not marking it. Most hunters, we're all excited. We see scrape, we see activity, we sit up on it, and all of a sudden, we don't see a deer, and we sit there all week and not see a deer, then we get aggravated and quit hunting scrapes. Well, you shouldn't do that, because a secondary scrape, he's getting ready to build, he's building his house. Once a buck marks a scrape, then he's going to check that scrape. That's called a primary scrape. I call it a master bedroom. And the reason he does that is he comes in, and if all of you that have ever seen a buck mark a scrape, pretty fascinating, is whether it's live or on screen, a buck will come in and he'll kind of half squat and he'll take his back legs, and as he urinates over his tarsals, he'll rub his back legs together, and as the muss and the urine goes together onto the ground, he'll paw at the ground. He's got what's called an interdigital gland between the hoof. So as he paws in it, he's putting his personal ruddy noter. We go back to the question of Brittany earlier. The ruddy noter of a white-tailed deer consists of 3 different things. When his neck is swollen, it is the urine over the tarsals, over the back, rub the urine through the tarsal with the muss onto the ground. Then he also paws at the ground, has an interdigital gland. This year you kill a buck, take a knife, spread the front hoof, and all you do is just take it and kind of, you don't even have to dig hard, just kind of rake down in there. You're going to get a waxy type substance. It's called an interdigital gland. What's crazy about that is that's not like toe jam. When you smell that, it'll knock you down. When you take the interdigital gland from a white-tailed buck, you can't hardly smell it. And you're thinking, what's the deal? It doesn't carry the pungent odor that you would think it would be, because like humans, you take your shoes off, you really know it. 2 total different purposes. So when that buck marks that scrape and he urinates on the gland, on the tarsals onto the scrape, and then he paws the ground with the interdigital, the way to look at an interdigital gland is sort of like your fingerprint. Every buck's different. And so when he puts that in there, it's like his personal identification. Now he's saying, this is my bedroom, not everyone else's. I'm going to check it. It's Don's bedroom, not Tom's, not Chris's. You know, it's mine. Because I've put all of my ruddy nodor, which consists of neck swollen, urine, mus, interdigital, in that scrape. That's the one I'm going to check. Now, that's the reason a buck checks it. Now, a buck doesn't have to come up to the scrape and look in it. Which way does he do? 99% of the time he does it. What does he do? He goes downwind. And he may just be walking, checking. He just may be going, cutting the wind and just kind of checking. Now, what's he checking on? He's checking on two things. First of all, why does he mark the scrape? He marks it to tell all the bucks in the area to keep your butt out of here. This is my master bedroom. University of Georgia, Carl Miller, they call that a no tolerance zone. And so now he's serious. He means stay out of this master bedroom. No more Monday night football. You can't come in the den. You can come in the den and watch football, but you can't come down the hall to the master bedroom. So now it's a no tolerance zone. So the second reason he does it is, first is tell all the bucks to stay out. Second is tell all the girls to come see me. Now, so let's say that I'm sitting here. I'm at a scrape, and the wind's coming from behind my head, and it's going this way. Now, I've marked my master bedroom. Buck's over there. I'm over there. Wind's this way. Now, which way am I going to check my scrape? Downwind. So I'm going to circle downwind. Now, why am I circling downwind? Because I want to smell my scrape. I ain't got to come up here and look at it. How close does he, we get this question asked a lot. How often or how close will he check a scrape? Depends on the wind. Depends on topography. It depends on if it's a gust, if it's a constant. There's variables to that, but he doesn't have to come right up and look in it. He's just downwind to where he can cut the wind with his nose and he can tell. Now, what's he checking for? He's wanting to make sure there's not another buck in there. The second reason he does it is to tell all the girls to come in. Same scrape, wind's going this way. Here's what a doe would do. A doe will go downwind, and if she smells the ruddy nodor of a white-tailed buck in his master bedroom, and if she is a mature doe, that doe will come downwind, and if she likes what she smelled, note what I just said, she could like it and she could not. I mean, what would possess her to like it? I don't know. She'll make a judgment call. Either I like it or I don't. If she likes it, she'll come into that master bedroom and she's going to do one or two things. She's either going to urinate in that scrape or she's going to urinate and put droppings in it. And she'll go off over here and she'll browse, hang around, or she'll bed. Now, when a buck goes downwind, the first thing he's wanting to do when he goes downwind and he checks that scrape, what does he have his heart on smelling? He has his heart on smelling what? The calling card of that doe, which is what? Urine and or droppings. So she leaves a calling card, she goes over here and beds down or browses, and a buck comes in, smells a receptive doe, he trails the doe up and he breeds her. It's the way the good Lord designed the master bedroom. Okay, makes sense. Now, so when that doe does that, she's doing that to bring all, she's coming in and she's hanging around. Now, it tells other bucks and does different things. Let me give you a prime example of this. Many of you guys know Eddie Salter. Eddie Salter is absolutely one of the best hunters in the country, a real good friend of mine. We got in the industry together. Eddie's several-time world champion turkey caller, great whitetail hunter, lives in Everett Green, Alabama. Now, in the process of doing this, we were hunting in South Alabama one time, and I got in late. And he said, well, where are you going to hunt? I said, well, you know, he told me where I was going to go in at. And he said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take you in. I said, okay, great. So he took me in. Now we're filming. We go in, and he says, okay, now you go on. We're stopping here. You go down this road. You go around. You go across a little branch, a little creek. And you'll go up on a knoll. and you'll see a stand there. And the creek makes a little horseshoe in front of you. A little old branch makes a horseshoe. I said, okay, great. So I go in, I hang the tarsal up, I put the buck urine and stuff in the scrape, the estrus, hang a gland up, I get up in the tree and I grunt. And shortly after daylight, I hear something, I see a little buck coming along around. And what he's doing, he's coming around the little old creek. And I see him, but I see in front of him a doe, big mature doe. And she's just walking along. Well, about 5 yards behind her is this little old basket buck. And you could see him, man, you know, he's a little old teenager. You could tell he was in high cotton. He done had him a mature woman, you know. And you could tell he was strutting, boy. He got him a mature woman, he's following her. I'm watching them both come around the creek, and as the wind's going this way, and when that doe hit that scent of that buck, that dominant buck, that mature buck in that master bedroom, that doe pivoted like a Marine, turned and came straight up to me. She's walking to me to the scrape. The moment that little basket buck hit that same scent, he pivoted and went across the creek and left. Why? Why did they both smell the same thing, and why did both of them do two totally different things? No doubt. She was tolerating that young buck, but the moment she smelt a mature buck in a master bedroom, she came to that, and that buck knew it was a master bedroom, and he didn't want his butt kicked, and he went the other way. That's the difference. So, yes, that's a long answer, Doug Turner, to a question, do does use scrapes more than bucks? About the same, but they use it for different reasons, and it increases at certain times of the year. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to try to catch up on some more emails. Be right back.
Rise and shine. It's time to hunt.
Repel and kill the bugs that bug you most with the all-natural 100% deep-free BioShield.
You've waited your whole life for this moment. Don't spoil your opportunity because of poor preparation. Keep your optics clean and fog-free for a clear shot every time. Fog Zero.
All right, folks, we're back. Let's see here what we got. We're going to try to catch up a few more of these email questions here. And, folks, we do appreciate you sending them in, and we do apologize for we try to get to as many as we can. And, you know, you just don't want to blast them out, but that's the reason you're calling or emailing them in, is to try to understand these things. All right. We've got an email that says, I'm new to hunting. Can you give me a general idea of how people have success in hunting the rut? That's a big, broad question, and let me give you a broad, detailed answer, and that is understanding the rut. Folks, look, America is at war today in June. What's today, that date? So America's at war. We can't fight somebody we don't know where they are. We can't fight an enemy if we don't understand their strengths. We can't fight an enemy if we don't understand their mindset. And so that is, you got to know those things. A predator understands the weakness of the prey that he's hunting. He understands the habits. That's the reason predators hunt certain game at certain times of year. And you see that, and you see them change with the seasons. We as humans, we're at the top of the food chain. Society has bred it out of us. Folks, it's common sense. You need to understand the rut, pre-peak and post. Pre comes before peak, and post comes after peak. it's a story. It's a beginning, a middle, and the end. And the buck's head is in a different place in those 3 periods. So if you understand that and understand what he's doing, and then you layer in pressure and topography, that's a recipe for success. You'll find yourself not only killing a buck, but a certain buck. I'll give you a prime example of this. I was bow hunting and on a field, and I was on one corner of the field on a trail coming out. And though I was about 10 yards off of it, I could see the field. I look up and I see a doe and a yearling, a little fawn, coming feeding off the field in a gully, like a ditch, a wash that comes off of it through the one end of the field, and it tapers down and gets shallower coming out the other side. And I could see the doe and I could see the fawn go into the drainage. And every now and then I could see her head bumping through up and down in the drainage, and as she was coming out on the other side, or getting ready to come out on the other side. I catch something out of my eye. I look up and I see 2 coyotes behind the doe and fawn. Now they're already in the drainage ditch in the green field, but down in it. I see them both ease up to the plot. One drops down. The second one goes all the way around. I'm watching him go around through the pines coming around. He gets on this end of the drainage ditch where they're coming out at and lays down. This one squats, and all of a sudden the one that went around facing them took off after them. Guess what happens? Guess what the doe's going to do? Guess what common sense says do? They were perfectly safe going in, so they turned around and went back the way they came. That second coyote laid still, let that big doe go by him, and when that fawn went by him, he rolled it. That is understanding predator, understands habit, understands movement, understands cause and effect. He didn't read a book, he didn't go to a seminar, he understood where he was living. That's the difference. You got to understand it as a predator, and if you do, you'll be successful, not just killing any bucks, but a given buck. Okay, so next question. During the rut, is it better to only use doe estrus, or should I also use buck tarsal as well? Without a doubt, this is a great big, you use buck every day of the year. You know to use estrus. You use estrus once he starts chasing a doe. Outside of that, you use buck urine every day of the season. Literally, if you could hunt 365 days a year, you would use buck urine. Now that's, guys, to a lot of you that sounds so foreign, but it just like that predator I was just telling you, you know, it's ingrained into us to use estrus during the peak of the rut, and that's death. But that, how can I say this? And not being vulgar, this is live on Ustream, so we can say stuff like this. I guess we can say stuff like this. I just got a head shake. Yes, you can. A buck, a doe estrus is like a good-looking lady in a skirt, short skirt, mini skirt, right? Any buck is trying to get to that doe. Young buck, little buck, big buck. Only difference, little buck can't, big buck kicks his butt. Or in the absence of the big buck, little buck comes in. Now, it's, you see this just like you see a little buck teenager come up to a good-looking woman in a bar, and he's talking to her, and he's just irritating the dog mess out of her, and he goes, he just yeah, just like this around her, immature. She ignores it. Let a grown man walk up that's mature and confident in himself, she leaves with him. There's a difference. Now, having said that, estrus you use during the peak, buck every day of the year. Every day of the year. Any buck's going to come to it. They're not coming to fight, they're coming to see who the new kid is. So the answer to that is use buck every day of the year. Literally, bucks are more concerned with bucks 99% of the year than they are with a doe. Guess when they're concerned with a doe? That's right, when she's in estrus, when the peak of the rut, when she starts running. Okay? Now, when she starts running, she's not in estrus. She's coming in. That's the reason she's running. She don't want to be fooled with. But he'll start chasing her. So that's what most people consider the beginning. It is the beginning of the peak, but most of them consider that the rut. when a buck starts chasing a doe. It is the rut, but it is not the peak of the rut. Okay? We got time for a couple more? All right. He said, I got time for one more. What are the advantages of having multiple stands hung over a given food plot or a given field? Well, there are advantages to it. If you're going to play the wind, you know, if you've got a restaurant sitting here and it's, you know, it's open 24/7, right? 24/7, and you live in this part of town, this side of town, and you know that anytime you want to get up and go, you go this way. Your preference is to go this way to that restaurant. And you get ready to go, and you tell your wife, come on, hurry up, hurry up. If you don't, we're going to catch what? Rush hour. Or, you know, now the bridge is out, or there's a detour. So there's those circumstances, pressure, wind being the biggest factor to that, changes the route that a deer will come to the field and feel insecure. But I have found, unless it is a strong, sure enough wind, that they'll try their best to come in that same route. And a lot of them, it's like humans, you know, oh no, the traffic's not that bad, we'll get ahead of it. Next thing you sit there for 2 hours in traffic waiting on the traffic jam to move. Well, a buck is going to try his best to get to where he's going with his nose. Downwind, if this is, my hand is downwind, I'm sitting here and that's downwind. That's not just downwind. A buck doesn't have to do this to be downwind. That's downwind. A buck can come right here and come into me at an angle. So you're not looking at this way. If you do, you're going to have a buck stand right there, come and cut the wind and curl and stand right there on you. So you don't want to always, you got to look, downwind is in an 45, almost like a V off of you. Okay? So having multiple stands gives you the advantage to play the wind. How do you know the prevailing wind? You pay attention the night before what the weather's going to do tomorrow. It always tells you that you got a prevailing wind or gusting wind. But it will most time, unless there's a front coming in, it's going to change. Or if you're in a bottom, in this case, they're talking about a field. Most fields are not going to be up and down like that, but there's going to be a prevailing wind, and you're going to want to pay attention to that. Folks, there's a lot of good questions, and all these makes a difference. This show is about how to peel off what society has bred into us, and guys, it makes all the difference in a life. And the way you hunt is to understand you're ahead of the food chain. You need to start thinking like a predator. If you do, you'll start acting like a predator, and you'll see a world of difference. Stay tuned next Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time every week. Folks, it's June. We're fixing to be in July. For heaven's sakes, after that, you're fixing to start planting food plots as you're talking about these fields. And in just a very few months, we're going to be back in a tree stand, and you're going to be ahead of the curve because you're going to have more knowledge of woodsmanship to be understanding how to hunt pre, peak, and post rut. Folks, we'll see you next Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Call your friends, tell them about it. See you next week.